aktiver Livestream seit 76 Sekunden, sagt er.
Ah, okay.
Musik.
Dann sind wir online. So, welcome to our first Alias Experts panel discussion. My name is Christian Pilgram and I will be your host for the next 1.5 hours. I am General Manager of Product Innovation Lounge. We are an Autodesk Gold partner focused on providing design and visualization solutions, mainly from Autodesk. My personal journey with Alias started in 1992, so I will have my 30 years anniversary next year. We will start our discussion after a short introduction to all the panel members, and after 60 minutes of panel we will answer as many questions as possible, so feel free to write your questions in the Q&A field. Higher rated questions will be answered first. So thank you all for being part of the panel, and thank you for the amazing amount of registrations. So at first I will introduce the panel. First one I want to introduce is Thomas Herrmann. Thomas is the Associate Vice President in Autodesk Design and Creation Products Group, responsible for the automotive and conceptual design products, including Alias, Vr, Shotgun, in Design Studio, Sketchbook Pro, and the project Sugar Hill, which is now Alias Create VR. He's based in Toronto, Canada, and I'm very happy you joined the panel very short term. When I asked you yesterday, thank you a lot. Thomas will replace Phil Botley, which he unfortunately can't attend because he is ill at the moment. So Thomas, your journey with Alias started in 1998, long before it was acquired by Autodesk. This was a time when 3D in design was growing enormously. What was the biggest success and how did you celebrate it with Alias?
That's a pretty loaded question too, I think. There have been lots of successes. I think one I would say is how technology is changing the product. I still remember the first years as product manager on Alias where Cintiq showed up, made a huge difference in how you interact with drawing, sketching, modeling. So the Cintiq was a great moment at the beginning. And of course, when I joined Alias, introducing of Surface Studio after coming from ISEM. And I think the next thing for me is right now, the next moment is AR/VR right now. We see how AR/VR is changing our users' behavior with our product and how the product is also changing itself as well. I think these are some really key moments, how technology is evolving, what we do as a software developer, and how our customers are using new media to create in new different ways as well.
Okay. Yeah, thank you a lot. So next one I want to introduce is Niels Kremser. He also started to work for Alias Wavefront in 1998, surprisingly, where he worked until 2006. As Alias became Autodesk. He has long-term experience as an Alias trainer, and I know him as someone who is able to present the most complicated features in a very interesting way. 2013, he started as a team manager for Strack and Cass at Altron, a big player in engineering services. 2020, Altron was acquired by Capgemini. I don't know, Niels, if you know Thomas and Rob from the beginning. What was your first big and exciting project or presentation at Alias with these guys?
Yeah, first, thank you for introduction, Christian. I actually My first steps with the software were 91, so 1 year before. So I just realized that I'm 30 years in the business.
Great.
So first I was I really learned as a user to try to learn the software by myself. Like this was quite common that time. Yeah, we have to, if you go back to the early 90s, that's actually the last century. You have to remember that the hardware was completely different, and the accessibility of Alias was just not there. We had super expensive Unix workstations. You have to know, especially the younger listeners here, that we talk about a totally different age and time, that the Unix workstations were light years before the PCs. PCs that time had, I don't know, 16 colors or 20, what was it, 256 or something. That means the Unix workstation cost like 100,000 Deutschmarks. The software was not cheap, so you can imagine that it was quite exclusive club. Yeah, it was very cool to work with. But I'm really glad that today it became really, thanks to Autodesk as well, more accessible to everybody. I mean, now you know that every person can download not just Alias, but any Autodesk product as a test version immediately for 30 days. I still think that exists. So maybe I'm the alien here, because I actually learned studied computer science, but immediately got attracted to the most interesting aspect of computers. That was graphics for me. So 3D modeling was really new and cool, and amazing that we had the strong machines and could really work in real time, which was not possible on PCs or any other thing. So I started 91 in a small, finished my study. Then I jumped to the user side. I worked in a design office as a 3D operator, modeler. And then I had the chance 98, and that's correct, Christian, to join Alias, which was pretty cool. So coming back to your question, Thomas and Rob, I remember Rob when I first saw Rob, I think in Toronto at a meeting. And Thomas, I'm not sure, Thomas, so when we met first, I'm sure it was in Toronto. So if you ask me what was the coolest or the most project or experience, was really when I entered Alias. That was really kind of a dream job for me, because there first I had the first real training. So this learning by doing was quite common before, and I met many people who learned Alias by themselves, and there was super advantage to have experienced trainers that tell you, demystify the software, give you cool tips and tricks. So I enjoyed very much. This was my first most exciting year, 91. But sorry, I'm talking too much. Next, please.
Thank you, Niels. The next one is Bernd Kunze. Bernd is working with Alias for also 25 years and started as an exterior designer at Volkswagen. So he told me that both employed and as a freelancer, he worked on projects for almost any car OEM, I think, in Europe. So he as far as I know, he spent quite a long part of that at Opel as a team leader for Kassen Strack. And he also used to work as Alias trainer and teacher. Currently, he is a professional servicing specialist at Porsche. And in your opinion, Bernd, what was the best innovation in Alias in your 25 years experience?
Okay, this was the undo button. As I started, undo was not existing, and it was really a mess. Every time when you did a mistake, a big one, you had to pay so much attention to this what you're doing, and you have to save all the time, no checkpoints available, and so on and so on. I mean, it was a different time, surely, but it was always fun and a lot of trouble experience.
Yeah, that's really
and you had
interesting.
to limit yourself, or let's say you had to how can I say it, pay attention that you press always the button save, in that time. And the next big innovation is for me the sub-D thing. This is so good. Even for me as a dinosaur, so I like to work with it because when a designer comes with a 2D sketch, you know, it's nothing against the designer, but you get one 2D sketch and another 2D sketch, and should be the same car, but it isn't. Okay, but then when you are in trouble and you don't know what they exactly want to impress with the design, and then you can do in sub-D a short form. You can try something. You know, this is so easy to do, and this is the best innovation in the beside the undo button in the last 5 years for me.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. That's very interesting.
You're welcome.
Markus Schnabel. I don't know. It seems that we are all about the same age, apart from Marco and and also Markus has over 25 years experience in Alias. Markus is both designer and Alias user, Alias legend. He runs his own company Freischwung since 2008 and always works on exciting and disruptive projects. Everyone we talk about it tells us about something new. And I know Markus is someone who always adopts to the innovations very quickly and finds the first bugs after a few hours of the latest software release. Markus, you live in a beautiful village with an amazing name Paradiso. So how did you get there, and what moments there make it really feel like paradise?
Thank you very much for the invitation that I can participate at this panel. Well, when I came here in Ticino, southern Switzerland, I followed a client, an important client. So I searched for a good location to have a nice cultural environment like the Mediterranean. But as we're in Switzerland, it has a very efficient economy setup. So that was a good reason to come here. And strategically, it's quite interesting because I'm less than 2 hours away from Zurich and 1 hour from Milan. And to go to the seaside, it's less than 3 hours, or going to Nice is 4 hours like Stuttgart. So it's this part. And to be here in Paradiso is for me that in summer I go to the lake swimming, or I go just up the hill. And I can escape the computer life within minutes. So that's one of my favorites.
Thank you, Markus. So I just go quickly through because we are a lot of people, and so don't spend too much time before getting the real discussion. But it's so interesting what you have to say. So Oliver, you are also one of these guys here. Not only come from automotive design, but you have both experience industrial design and transportation design. Oliver is running his own design studio since 2000. So he celebrated his 20 years anniversary last year of his design office. And the interesting thing, Oliver, your focus is more than in industrial design, as I know, rather than transportation. So you are not the typical Alias user. So what is your story about why you started to use Alias as a designer?
Yeah, hi Christian, hi everybody. Yeah, partly right. Indeed, I carry out not just automotive work, although I have to admit that, let's say 70% of the turnover is done with automotive industry. But besides that, the initial idea or the decision I did more than 20 years ago when I set up the company, which CAD system I would try to use there, the decision was clearly made because I wanted to keep control. So it's all about definition when we implement the design. and when we interact with all the other guys in the process. And as I learned before, like in the 1990s already, so 1980 used to be a crucial date for all of, for many of us when we started to learn Alias ourselves. Alias seemed to be the software in the design realm environment that you could define a pretty precise and accurate sculpture yourself before handing it over to engineers or anybody else in the process. And apart from the car industry, when you do the job as an industrial designer, your client, they aim to get a ready for process, ready for tooling design data. And I don't want to have anybody translating my design. So I want to do it myself and deliver exactly what I want. So that was the main decision why we decided to have Alias as the most powerful software those days, and still today.
Great. Thank you. And now we come to Stefan Strohm. Stefan's passion for Alias started way back in the Jurassic era of Alias, when computers used to be magenta or cyan, and the power animator was a common tool at Industrial Light and Magic. Stefan and I know each other for ages, and I'm happy to be able to hire him now and on as a trainer. Stefan, what was your best Alias moment in your 25 years as an Alias expert?
Yes, Christian, thank you for the invitation too. The best moment was I have become a student again because I'm at the Reutlingen University now, and I started studying like my daughter, but I'm not a studier, I'm a lecturer now, and I teach students. And so this is a magic moment for me to give my knowledge about Alias to the students. And so this was one of the best things that happened to me during the history, because I became young again.
Thank you.
Also, one moment maybe I have to mention is that was more the business background. When I went to Toronto, because also like Niels, I did work for Alias. For Autodesk, sorry. And when I went to Toronto to the meeting, I sat in an Airbus A340, and all around me were Alias surfaces, which I know from the computer. And this is magic. So when you see what you did in real life, and that's a point which motivates me still today to use Alias and to work on it.
Thank you. Now we come to Marco. Which has a really hard name to pronounce it. I hope I do it right. It's Marco Wojciechowski.
Yeah, don't worry.
So hello, Marco.
Just Marco.
Marco is creative director at Munich Design. It's a quite new design studio in Munich, and as I learned, you're both transportation designer and product designer from your education, and although you are the youngest here in the panel, you already have an impressive CV working for BMW and DesignWorks before you came to Munich Design. And I think apart from Oliver and Marcus, you are the only one in the panel whose focus is more on design and not so much at CAS or Class A. And actually, how big is the part of your day you're working in 3D, and what tools do you prefer to use?
Mm-hmm. Hey, yeah, thank you, Christian, for your short introduction and the invitation to that opportunity. And yeah, it's a great honor to be around with so many years of experience. And yeah, I'm a little bit younger to the field, but working in an interdisciplinary team of designers and modelers, 50%. I see it as my main job to communicate between the two disciplines and to bring them closer together. And that might be quite difficult in a big OEM where you find yourself in different teams all the time. And for us, like the disciplines are blending into each other. So all designers, they use 3D software naturally from the beginning. usually Blender and sub-D to find the proportions. And sometimes it's up to 50% of our time that we directly work in 3D. Because I think the times are changing. When I was at BMW, I barely saw paper sketches on the tables anymore. Everything became digital because of the expectations for speed. And most sketches we know from the internet, they have been done afterwards for the press. And to communicate with modelers, you had quite different sketches. You would probably not hang on the wall. So I see that we are in the future will be sketching more in 3D. And we will explore more proportions, not like the surface. And then we will pass those proportion ideas to an expert for surface design. And he will have all the extensive knowledge for tooling to make it work. But I think it's much easier to communicate with a 3D shape than just with a 2D paper. And I agree with what Bernd was saying. It's so difficult to bring the front, the rear, and the body side together. And sometimes those ideas came from different people. So in the 3D model, you really see how it blends in. And so I like the journey from 2D to 3D.
Thank you, Marco. Yeah, I think that's really a crucial point. So we get to the last introduction. It's Robin Aldroid. I also thank Rob, who also was asked yesterday to join the panel to replace Phil. And Robin is a senior technical specialist at Autodesk based in the UK. He's focused on the Northern Europe, but covering also all EMEA. And Robin has been with Autodesk since 2006. During a time, he has been involved in support, post-sales, automotive consultant, pre-sales, technical marketing of consumer products, transportation, industrial design, draftsman, architectural technician, and he is really one of the most experienced guys at Autodesk. I think he probably is the most experienced. I know, and like Thomas, you also started in Alias in the company Alias Wavefront in 1998, and I'm quite sure you know most of the guys here in the panel. Is there anybody here you connect to a special story you could tell us about?
Yeah, I thought about that one a little bit, and there's several. I'll pick one that's not going to embarrass anybody. It's going to embarrass me more. So I Thomas and I have crossed paths in various roles, and when he came to his current role, he came to the UK for a team meeting, and you may remember that he said, "Oh, why didn't you pop down and you come into the office? Yeah, I'll pop down, pick me up, and we'll go to the office and catch up." So I live about an hour and a half from the office, and that day traffic was particularly bad. Thomas had said to the other guys he was with, "Oh, don't worry, you go to the office, Robin's picking me up, it'll be fine." Unfortunately, I dropped my mobile phone into the footwell, so I couldn't actually phone him to say, "Hey, Thomas, I'm going to be running late." Eventually, I roll up to his hotel, pick him up, we drive to the office, and I think I must have nearly made him late for his first team meeting. So that's my claim to fame. There are many others, but that will do for today.
We caught up later.
We did.
We still kept talking eventually, yeah. I remember that traffic in the UK is horrible.
So Rob, I know that you're one of the guys in Autodesk who is very close to a lot of different customers and constantly are in contact with the customers. So what tell you customers, and what innovation in Alias maybe of the last 5 years had the biggest impact in the software? Can you tell us or give an example of a customer feedback on this feature?
Yeah, that's a long story. That could be half an hour in itself, but I'll try and keep it short. I think in the last 4 or 5 years, there's been a renaissance with Alias. There's been, there's always been massive development that people may not see front of house always, but we've brought things to the table that we've already mentioned, like sub-Ds. Sub-Ds is a massive game changer. I think for lots of different people in the industry, people using the software, people using it daily, they can integrate it and work with it within the normal NURBS framework as well, so they can mix the two tools. We've seen a lot of other people pick it up. So, Class A, CAST are taking it as far as they can. They're the experts, but designers are also trying to go the other way. They're learning it and trying to get into 3D early on, because with 2 or 3 tools in sub-Ds, you can create something, and it takes a lot of the guessing out. Sketch lines are great, but you have to translate it in some way. So as Marco was saying, sketch lines in 3D, that's the next one of the next big things. So sketch lines in 3D put together in a 3D world means the people that have got to model this can actually do a really good job of translating that without having to guess. A sketch, you have to place it, position it. Is it quite right? But if you've got a line that you've got to work to, then that always helps. So sub-Ds is the first one. Create VR, I've been watching that, as you said, with the prototype that came out a few years ago. And we still haven't hit the market with it. COVID has not really helped, because you need to have a headset on your head to show people. One of my colleagues has done a really great job of showing it remotely, and Create VR is one of the next big things, because it connects the designer with the modeler. I think all of this VR technology, because of COVID, is being accepted a little bit more in the industry. I think it's been forced a little bit because there's no other option. But the Create VR tools are some of that. And I'll pick another 2 so I don't rattle on. But metadata, that for me came out in a point release, and it kind of came out the door, and we haven't utilized it fully until now, because now with the feature replace tools, it means that we can actually start to replace features in a semi-parametric way, as close as we're ever going to get in Alias. It means that people can swap curves out, put engineering profiles in, and really drive change and automate some of the processes. We're not going to do everything, but at least we can take a big step forward. And that applies for designers, modelers, Class A. There's lots of different disciplines. Actually, I'm going to do 2 more. Sorry. And then Dynamo Player, that's really starting to come home, because scripts are there that people can pick up, they can tune, make their own, but it means that you can handle something which is a new toolbox. You as a customer and a modeler or a designer, you can build these tools and actually make them work for you. We've got great examples of different things just come out that the team are putting together, but I think it really puts that back in the control of the customer, which this is all about. Is we listen to customers to what we do. Sometimes people may go, well, really? There is always somebody driving the reason why we do things. And I think that those things have been asked for a long time. It just takes a lot of time to get there. And then the last thing that I would be shot if I didn't mention is the reference manager. The addition of the reference manager, the ability to bring a whole stack of data in from an assembly, the ability of all the tools in there to mean that people can start sharing files. Again, it's not fully complete. There's always bits that we need to do with these, but it makes a big step forward for people managing the data and working with it. And there's probably 5 or 6 other things that the product team are going to be shouting at me to say, but those are some of the big ones from the last 3 or 4 years.
Sounds good. That brings me to a question to Marco, because he also just talked about the changing process in car design. And do you think that Alias sub-D modeling become a more powerful tool for designer than Photoshop today?
Yeah, that I can really imagine that, because I experienced some designers spending ages on press sketches to make them really work. And they have been working on those sketches for weeks and sometimes months. Then I was experiencing a young, talented designer who was showing me, Speedform was called earlier, how to model in Alias an X7 was it in 1 hour, and it was so impressive how quickly he came up with a proportion, and I could adapt to the tools he used, and in less than an hour I knew everything I need to know to master it myself. So that was really a big impact when I realized, oh, there's no excuse for a designer not to work in 3D now. And I see with SubD the huge potential that you can communicate now more refined in 3D rather than on a 2D paper, where, as we mentioned before, we have lots of interpretation and different experiences. Everyone interprets a sketch differently and has to blend it together with different views. And if you have a 3D proportion, then it commits you closer to your final vision. And that reduces the stress between the different parties, between designers and surface designers. And it can speed up the process drastically. So I have a really young, talented designer in our team, and he models now sometimes 3 different body sides in one afternoon. And then you can select the design you want. Yeah? And he doesn't have to spend so much time in Photoshop just to figure out if this body side is working or not. So it's very efficient, and I think there is the right time for every tool for a specific time of the process. So in the beginning, when you find you have to develop a volume or a proportion, you need something rough in 3D to describe a certain gesture, and then when your design is selected, you pass it on to an expert who makes it who improves the quality of the surfaces and brings it on a much higher level. But yeah, I see there it's a nice opportunity for designers to directly design in 3D because it's so fast.
Yeah, at a point also on SubD, Christian.
Yeah.
Because from educational side, it's pretty interesting that students adapt SubD modeling very fast. So for them, it's the perfect introduction to become a 3D designer, not only a PowerPoint or on paper. And so what I found out is when we did trainings on SubD, it's 3 times 4 hours probably, and you were able to model your first exterior or interior model, and so you get really fast into 3D. So I think that's the biggest benefit, and the cool thing is you can share the package with your CAS modeler. So you have it on the same platform, and so you can sketch over your 3D model on a package which is realistic. That's I think these two things, working on a package and also having it learned in a few days and being able to do and to start and develop ideas.
That all sounds very interesting to me. So I want to come up with a question to Thomas, because it's just something I just realized in the discussion, that it seems that it's changing quite a lot in how you are using 3D tools in the industry. So what do you think we can expect with Alias or other tools coming up from Autodesk the next year? Will pay attention to that, or where is your focus on innovation for the next few years?
Okay, so I cannot talk about what's coming next year because it's some regulations we have. However, I can share where we're kind of looking forward. So as Marco mentioned, the SubD and Alias make a big difference right now to the industry. We see a lot more users that have been 2D people or foam designers picking up the tool. So it was great. And especially the connections with Alias was a big demand we got from users too. I do sub-D, I want to continue versus having a bridge in product. So definitely there, but also we learned a lot with SpeedForm, just to call out the product, not just in the usage of sub-D, but also in how people want to use the product too. So the user experience was very interesting to learn that too. So looking at accessibility, approaching the product, learning the product will be something we'll be looking into the future as well, because we have the current generation of expert users, we're getting the new generation coming in, and you want to be as attractive to the existing users as you want to be for the new generation as well. So I think that's something you're looking into. Be faster in also how you approach new tools, because the developers are working super hard bringing all these features. So you want to make sure that the users take almost no time to at least get into it and use these tools in the production too. So we see this around. Connecting the workflows in the studio is important. Not about this tool or this tool or this tool. It's about a design studio who needs to work together. So you see us connecting workflows together more across products. That's important. I heard data a few times already. So we're starting with Shotgun as the glue to kind of coordinate data. That's something we see more and more interesting, because file management is something that works maybe with some studios, but not with bigger ones, especially if you want to do global collaboration. And COVID showed some signs that we need to have our users to organize better in such a way. And in hearing from design chiefs, they want to come in the office, and the first thing what they do, they want to look at content. That's something I think you want to look as well. Like, how can we help people surface what's happening in the studio in a digital way as well? Like looking at things, look at 3D models, sketches, and in an easy way to kind of coordinate things. That's some of the areas we're working on. But of course, we keep plowing along what we have done already, sub-Ds. We made a big push on text surfacing the last few years. You see us doubling down, of course, there as well. But the big thing is really bringing things together seamlessly. Creation, modification, visualization, analysis is important as well for us.
Thomas.
Oliver, you're muted at the moment.
Oh,
Probably
sorry.
hit the wrong button.
No, just have to keep it. Thomas, Christian introduced me as the industrial designer here in this group. So what we are describing is pretty much the process within the car industry. So of course, we want to go seamlessly from one step to the other, but of course, it's like the creation process, and then it's the ongoing process of implementation and model and so on over certain steps. And of course, the time frame is also pretty big. Considering you're just the designer who is doing everything from ideation sketch to the final model, how do you plan to deal with, other non-Autodesk products that are more popular in the industrial design area?
Thomas, you're also muted at the moment.
I'm muted. I think the most important thing is you want to be an open system. Like, you don't want to be, okay, it's Alias or Autodesk or nothing else. I think we are open. Like, you can work with Blender, with Alias and other ones. So we want to be open and inviting with other tools. Of course, we cannot cover everything in design suite that's needed. Automotive, I think they're good. I think we need to double down a little bit more also in consumer product design, which is different. You completely agree. I think there's Alias. I think CAD plays more role in this area. So we're also playing with Fusion a little bit in this domain. So yeah, I think for me, the most important thing is being open and being connected. So you can use Alias as your weapon of choice if you need to use it, or use other tools if that suits your current process better as well. So,
I mean, Marco talked about the SpeedForm, or you talked about the SpeedForm before, and there was this point in indication that education changes because it's different, much easier to work with Subtiv. So the question is there an idea to, this user experience? I mean, we are experienced users. For us, we do it like you wake us up in the morning, 5 o'clock, and then we're ready. But for people who are not experienced, they're quite often overwhelmed. And now with the Subtiv, we could make it much easier there. Like, it may be used in SpeedForm. So are there some ideas to go this direction?
Yeah, so I said earlier, so when bringing sub-Ds into Alias, I think we listen to the users for more connected workflows. That's the first part we did. So technology is there, it makes new workflows that are unique to Alias. The next thing is now looking at the user experience with SpeedForm, because it's a really unique workflows and how I present it. So be looking at this as well and what this could mean to the products. Because I said earlier, I think you want to be inviting not just for the current users with their knowledge and skills, but also what is in there for the next generation as well to pick up the tool. And they may not have the patience you guys had in the experience. I think it should be faster, quicker. Predictability is important as well. So you're going to see some stuff from us there coming that helps the not just the next generation, but also your existing users to be more comfortable in the product and more predicting what's happening as well. So I would say stay tuned, but SpeedForm was an interesting experiment for us to learn a lot of things.
I think I might add to that as well, Thomas. I think we're also always researching these things. And I think for the Alias user, the balance is, you know, most of the people on this call, well, all you people on the call are very experienced. You use the tool, you fine-tuned it, you've got it to work in a way that you really need it. And it's finding the balance between not dumbing it down for you, but also keeping it super powerful and customized to the way it wants to work. So it's a very fine line, and there is a lot of effort going into making sure that we do the right research, we get the right people involved, and I know that, you know, it's a longer term goal, I suppose.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like to add something. I would be really looking forward if there would be a second sub-D 2.0, even if it's like now integrated in the main program Alias. Because from my experience with many different people involved in the design process, you have quite a few people like project managers, and directors, operation managers, who has to interact with Alias. And they have to give feedback on this platform. They have to export files, send it away, but they do not model themselves. So I really liked the simple UI in VRED. And that simple bar you had in SpeedForm, which was as simple as you can make it compared to the Microsoft Paint tool set, it was similar reduced, and you had all you need. You could even render in that tool. So that was very powerful, and it would open the door for many other people who are off the active modeling already for a while, and for designers who can start jumping into the cold water to sketch in 3D. So I heard also rumors from VW that this tool was so easily to learn that they made it a common rule that for the design selection, every designer had to model a SpeedForm model to prove his design before they select the design. And that is showing that there's a huge demand for designers to jump on it. It should not be something in competition to the expertise of Alias for surface modeling, but it's another access. Yeah, and I see there. I would be really welcome if Alias could continue on that path.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
That brings me to one question, also maybe to Rob and Thomas. You talked about rendering. So there is a renderer or offline renderer in Alias, which is quite in the years. And can you tell us, or are you able to tell us if there is also something planned that rendering directly in Alias will be renewed, innovated?
All those hard questions. We definitely so definitely rendering is a thing. I think offline rendering is something from the past. I think like this real time, in real time ray tracing, you get a lot of what you need instantly versus the day later. So I think the thing that I can say is you see a lot of more connections between Alias and Vr. That's definitely something we started, and we definitely will drive this home a lot deeper and more consistency as well.
I think I can add to that. I think if you reference to some of the video material from last week at the AIF, we've been looking at it as a technical team, you know, not disconnected from the product team, but what can we do today? What works, you know, show some workflows and automation that can happen. And I think sometimes we don't show how those things work. So last week we showed 3 different ways of doing it. You can bring an alias file in manually to VRED, assign the materials manually with 1 right click, assign materials, job done. You get your viewports, you get your bookmarks across and lights and things like that. Or you can go right to the far end of the scale where you have a file that comes in, and we're working with our products because that's, you know, stage 1, I suppose. And, you know, Simon has managed to script it where you don't even need to actually open the software. It's scripted, so you load the file, the materials assignments happens, it comes across, it gets translated, and then it renders out a load of images. And you could even take that 1 step further. So, you know, to Marco's question earlier about, you know, UI and interface, you could even take that where it loads the file, it takes it in, and then you view it in a VRED stream. And then your UI is whatever you want it to be. It's very simple. And you can connect all these things together with Shotgun as well, where that is actually taking the load of, you publish the file, it does all these things for you, and then you view it. And I think you probably saw from last week's Innovation Forum examples from RCD where they were showing this working in Shotgun. We've got, you know, situations where we're doing that in certain cases internally. And it's all this automation, I think, is the bit where we can really help. It doesn't answer the question about the whole UI thing, I know, but it starts to connect things together and make them work more cohesive.
Okay, we talked a lot about conceptual design now, I think. So for me, it's important that we also will shortly cover the surfacing and Class A side from Alias. And I want to ask Niels, what in your opinion is crucial for Class A?
Class A is a big topic. We talk usually about 2 aspects here. So it's all the Class A surfaces, what you see. As an example, sorry, Oliver, I take a car. So in the exterior, it's almost everything you see as a side surface, and the same in the interior. Yeah, these are the Class A surfaces. So it's the highlights. So one is to the aesthetic requirements. They have to be perfect. And of course, the technical part comes here with all the feasibility, flanges, drafts, and so on. So the preparation for tooling, make sure it's toolable. These 2 things are in general definition of Stark or Class A. Stark is a German word. I experience it travels around the world, even in the English language. People sometimes refer to Stark in terms of Class A. When there's another aspect when you ask what's important for a company or department doing Class A, like we do in Capgemini Engineering, and for OEM, like car manufacturer. And this is sometimes I learned later that really for them, for the process, you have to remember that building cars or developing cars, it's a long-term process. It takes years. It's compressed, but it's still years rather than weeks or months. So there's a difference in industrial design, where usually we have denser processes. That means you have to consider things. Is the software and this company still there in 3 or 5 years? Yeah, I want to plan something. So reliability and stability is very important. Yeah, much more than you think if you're close to the software. So I would really consider this as well as in the decision which tool I choose for Class A. Yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah, Niels, you already talked about Oliver. So Oliver, as far as I know, you use Class A quality not only for transportation designs, but also for your product design project. What does Class A actually mean, and how does surface quality affect your workflow?
Actually, it's the same process in any kind of products. So once you know about the, let's say, the quality appeal that you can achieve with a mathematically correct surface set, I guess it's like with many other things, you don't want to go below. I mean, once you have a certain standard, that's what you strive for. By the way, Shrikant asked a question in the Q&A that Class A process in Alias seems to him time-taking, time-consuming. Well, I got to know Niels when we did a pilot project for Volkswagen, trying to implement Alias as a Strag software in their process. And actually, I could not say that there's a different to any other software today. I mean, it's more about the guy in front of the computer than about the software itself. So I guess, like, coming back to your question, Christian, doing a good Strag set of surfaces, it's much more about knowing about mathematics on the visual quality. And on the other hand, of course, it's all about the tooling processes and about the necessities with the material, with the co-adjacent parts, all the interactions between different stakeholders within one product. So getting this all in line is basically this process of making things toolable and producible. And I guess all this together is what we call Strag. I thought it's from straight, the English word for a straight path. Nope.
Niels, you know where it comes from.
I think it comes from the shipbuilding, where you had this wooden planks, and you had to think of, if you make the wood wet and you have like CVs, pushing that in shape, and you immediately notice that the tens in the wood when it tries to go back, and it's really important to feel where you need the points and which where's the highest weight, where's the highest curvature. So I like that analogy to the physical world, because it's very, very much the same. Yeah.
Oliver, a quick question on your answer. Do like Alias special tools like construction history make a difference for you in Class A when dealing with changes or iterations?
Well, actually, delete history is one of the most important buttons, I guess.
Exactly.
No, indeed, it's in the creative process. I mean, in the search for proportions and so on, we use the history, of course, we do, yes. It's a powerful tool, definitely. Yes, but once you're fine with what you see, you delete the history.
I think just on that, I think that's one of the things that has been developing over time is, Alias has many history engines, which create that challenge. And I know the development team are kind of untwisting them and connecting them, reconnecting them, so that we wouldn't, some of the things we're doing now, we wouldn't be able to do if they hadn't done some of the development under the bonnet, so that we can actually start to think about metadata and feature replace. And, maybe they're not there yet. They need proof in the industry before they're ready. And I appreciate what you say about history. It can tangle you up sometimes, but there's things that Alias and Autodesk, the Autodesk team are looking at to try and make that more stable and make that more usable.
I mean, the construction history is really, for me, crucial for Alias in a way that I would say that's a distinction to other tools. But on the other hand, there are many drawbacks, like there are tricky moments when you can lose everything if something is jumping and, for example, untrim, and then everything is going somewhere. So it's pro and con. I would appreciate work much more with construction history, but on the other hand, you have to know when you stop the history to avoid all this trouble. And that's really something, this experience that I know, okay, till there I can work with history and I love it. And then immediately I have to kill it not to get in trouble. That's a point I think you have to really improve.
That's what Oliver meant with
delete history. It's for me the same, because in Strag you don't use it, surely. In concept modeling you use it, yeah, sure, but Strag is something different. You have to pay attention not only of the highlight. I mean, when we come to the definition of Strag, is it you as a modeler you need to be a bit a kind of designer, and you need a bit a kind of engineer, because you have to have a deep engineering knowledge as well. What's a Bördel flange, for example, and so many things where you have to think about the tooling direction. Do you need something more with it or not? In concept modeling, I think it's a good idea to use the history, but in Strag not really, because it's handwork, really handwork. And yeah, back to the question what Srikant was asking for this class A surfacing, and the process. The answer is, for me, the process is always taking time, especially when the designer didn't find the step out. In big companies, they find it. They are let's say they have the gates and they have to finish it. After in Strag, you don't see the designer so quite often anymore, but sometimes it's continuous even in Strag. You search for, let's say, for the form, for the shape also, and that makes it really a long process. And especially when you work on the whole package, what you have down under, and so on and so on. You know, it's a long process, and will be, in my opinion, it will be not shorter. Doesn't matter which tool you use.
Yeah, because it's a handcraft. Yeah, in a physical world, it's the same. If you make, I don't know, wood maker a table, he needs some time. You cannot compress things and processes infinitely. Of course, we want to try and do everything, but some things are the same. Yeah, stay the same. I agree.
Okay.
But I would recommend also not to select the design or find the design in Alias, because then you're already quite limited. Everything takes long. That's where I see the potential of poly modeling or sub-D modeling, that you have to explore the design way earlier, and then there's a time when designers has to step back and they just make it work. And this is a problem of management internally sometimes, that it gets further and further closer to production, that you still have massive changes. But this is not helping for the quality, and you can tell that on latest cars that it's really hard to catch up after you have big volumes moving, even in Strag, because some things change dramatically. So I think you should be confirming your design way before you bring in so much precision.
Okay. Yeah, Bernd, you worked quite a bit for Opel, where I think it was
Yes, right.
the first company who used Alias both for concept modeling and for Strag, and tried to stay in one tool for the whole process and save time with that. So is it really, do you save time using Alias all over the process?
No, you don't save time. I mean, it's so as somebody from you guys said before, it's depending on who sits in front of the computer. I mean, in Opel was it quite good, because Thomas Salin invented this process. He's now CAD lead in Scania, so as I know. And his point was, when you come in as an Alias designer, you have no knowledge about Strag, class A surfacing, but you start with a concept, and over the years, because the process of the car is going over the years, and you stay always in the same team, you never change the team, so that means your knowledge will be bigger, and sometimes it was quite annoying for the 3D designers, for the modelers. Even we had one guy, he came in after 1 year with a cake, and I asked him, "It's your birthday?" And he said, "No, I model now 1 year on the outside mirror." You know, and this is Strag as well. Awesome. It takes time, because also the package is new. let's say the design should be stabilized, yes, but package is different new, let's say, influences of laws come in during the process could happen as well, and it changed a lot then, especially in exterior when you have this pedestrian impact, for example, and so on and so on.
Sounds great. So, Antonius, you had a look at the questions. Is there something we have to ask or to answer? Sorry.
Yeah, there are actually 5 questions. I think Oliver already kind of answered one, but let me start from the top. So the first question is, or the most voted question is, how will Alias transform in the next 10 years, and how can current modelers look forward to adapt to new tools? I don't know who wants to answer.
Well, that's already 2 hours of conversation here. But I think it's important to think. So first of all, to transform next 10 years. So Alias is 35 years old, so the next 10 years will be super exciting. Of course, I think we're going to see more. I think I talked earlier about connecting the tools together, looking at the current users, looking at the new users. So some things will happen there, of course, and bringing tools together in the studio more. That's like the super short answer on this one, definitely. And for adapting new tools, that's important to us. And we've seen the adoption rate with sub-Ds. Like in the past, it took customers sometimes a year, 2 years to update the users with releases. Suddenly these things are happening a lot faster. So what we want to do is have great features, of course, but also make it super easy to start playing with them very quickly as well. So you're going to see us operate in both areas. For the 10 years, I would say stay tuned. You're going to see a few things coming out soon that kind of shows where our direction is going as well. But definitely the biggest thing I would say is the commitment to our customers and users, and always having the ear to hear what's important to you. That is, I think, the most important for short-term and for long-term directions too.
Cool. Thank you, Thomas. The next question was kind of answered. I don't know if anyone wants to add something. It's about Class A surfacing in Alias, and that it's Srikant says that, or writes that it feels very time-taking. Yeah, I don't know if anyone wants to add something to that question.
I think that maybe has already been addressed, but you know. I think new ways of working on it, you know, new ways of looking at the possibility. And I know we've discussed about, you know, it is all about the user, and I totally agree with that. I think that, you know, we've been doing projects with customers recently, and, you know, only last year, where we're trying to really take this seriously, look at what can be done. And I'm not sure what we can say, but, you know, there's a customer, there was a project done for 3 months, and they shaved off significant time by working on the process, working on the training of the people, and education, you know, training and education of the people to get those users all better and all more connected. You know, we've talked about how the tools kind of, it takes a similar amount of time, but if you work on the education of the person, of how they use the tool and what they do right and what they do wrong, then you can shave a lot of time, as well as other things that we're looking at.
Great. Maybe you want to also answer the next question, which is about Alias and VR. I think you said before that you think that this is a big topic. I think in the comments, the question was a bit more specified, that like, what's the experience? Or maybe also the other attendees can say something about their experience with Alias and VR.
Maybe others should comment before I answer, but...
I can add something because I do it with my students. We do Alias VR, and the amazing thing is they work first on the computers, and they have that screen in front of them, and they try to find proportions, and they do interviews to explain it, and they do it and work on it, and then they put their goggles on their head-mounted displays and look at it and say, oh, it's not what I expected. The size doesn't fit. It seems to be somehow wrong because they couldn't see what they had on the screen means. So with VR, they immediately can see what happens and how big and what proportions are telling them and so on. And maybe I can add one thing which I would wish for my profession as an educator. I like VRAD's collaborative mode, when I have all my students in one session and we can sit around the chairs or tables or whatever they do, interiors, and we can discuss on it together. And that would be great to have in Alias VR too. But VR is so important. Yeah, I'm sure also for designers in the companies, I think.
Yeah, I would like to add something to that because we are all experiencing that clay is getting less and less into our production processes. And I quite enjoy to judge the design in VR almost every day. Like it's quite motivating as an achievement of the day to view the work after the job is done. And I sit in our VR lab almost every evening with my modelers and the designers, and then we just have a look how it interacts with us, like in a one-to-one manner, because there's a huge difference when you look at it on a screen and when you can walk around or look around when you have like in Rolls-Royce proportion, for example, like in front of you and you can walk around. It's totally different than working on a screen.
Sounds great.
So it brings back pleasure.
Maybe just a quick comment. This is again like the car designer's view. We use the VR port of Alias. Maybe I'm not on the latest stage, but let's say visually, it's not state of the art, is it? So usually we use not the Alias port to review the models. Maybe there's room for improvement, like an easy plug and play. And we don't use it just for ourselves to revise the designs we do, but it's also the most important interaction with the client when presenting design. And like design is still like pretty crucial, how to say, means of interaction with people who are not involved in the process themselves. And telling them to get rid of physical models and stepping into the digital world still leaves this interpretation. It's some fuzzy, still some fuzzy aspects in interpretation, even with the goggles on. So improving this one is the most important, I guess, that in the communication with the client, the decision makers who cannot take the time spending hours and hours to revise the process and digging into it, who have seconds or let's say minutes to judge what they see. This is also what I can tell when you are an independent studio interacting with your clients, which we are playing a completely different role, like an integrated design department in a big company.
Yeah, I think Oliver made a great point, and the models are suddenly available to a lot of other people who maybe not experts in Alias or in Vr as well, which makes it far more, people can engage on something that they don't create, which is super important. Mm-hmm. And VR, I think Vr VR is great. I think with great VR with Alias, it's also a good learning exercise for us. We're learning a lot. Like we did some polygon modeling, now we did surfacing, we did curves, now we're doing sub-D. So there's also an interesting learning curve with our customers together. What fits the most, like what Stefan mentioned. I think it's a medium to not just create, but also to collaborate together too, and discuss and modify together. And it's really shape finding at the end in different ways. So it's a new medium, and that's really has lots of potential going forward in different ways.
Right, maybe just to answer the direct question of what about Alias and VR? I'm not sure whether the question comes from someone who's tried it, because Alias has 2 VR tools already, the create side and the view. So go check it out. And if not, get in touch with Christian and ourselves, and we'll make sure we furnish you with some information.
So, thank you. So I would go to the next question. The Gaurav asks, it is amazing how Blender occupies such less space on the system and still does much more. Can Alias not be like that? I would be maybe I would maybe open the question more like, how to compare Blender and its rising popularity, how Alias compares to that. I don't know. Who wants to answer?
So maybe I'll give it a stab. I mean, at the size of on the install, Alias is 35 years old. So, you know, there's a difference. There's a lot of heritage and a lot of time and effort gone into building things. So that's one side of it. I think that, you know, we'd have to get a developer's helicopter deep dive view of what that means and why. You know, there's other dependencies, there's other tools that we ship with that, you know, it's going to be some things like that and libraries, etc. And I think on the Blender stuff, you know, it's Blender side of things, it's part of the ecosystem. It's customers use different tools to get the job done. Customers out there have got to get the job done. And I think that, you know, it's a different approach and, you know, it's a different way of working, but it's part of the ecosystem. And we look at that. We work with data that comes from Blender and vice versa, I'm sure. So yeah, it's one of those tools.
Good answer.
And it also keeps us a little honest, I suppose, as well.
Very good. Okay, so Christian, you tell me if how much time we have, but I would go to the next question. It's from Rob Worm asking, first thanking for the panel discussion and then asking if there are new ways to do procedural textures or geometry mapping within Alias for car grille or seatback forms, because he states that it's mostly done in Maya or 3ds Max. I don't know. Robin, maybe again.
I remember this old tool, displacement mapping to use for a grill.
Yeah, I think I don't know whether grill's around to stay for long, but I appreciate the question. And I think that we don't have, I don't think I can talk about future and everything. Thomas will slap me, you know, even from his reach in Toronto. You know, it's something we're looking at, and I think maybe they looking at it a different way. You know, maybe is it quicker to model things and use some of the array tools in a different way. Dynamo, for example, where you get far more richness out of a model than you do a texture, and effectively you're faking it. And I think we hark back to the connection to VRED. You know, VRED's got lots of tools for doing texturing, and right now that's where those kind of things probably would done. The connections between the two tools really make that work. And equally with Maya and Max, you know, they've got a lot of powerful tools to do these things. So we don't have a direct answer for that in Alias at the moment.
But you're promoting Dynamo. I mean, I'm trying to work with Dynamo since many, many years, with version 0.07 or something. And I even made a training, but this would be a direction for the grill and all that stuff to handle it. But I must say, I feel like in the early days, as Niels said, when we learned Alias, we had, well, I think it was something like 3,000 pages in 3 books, and that's all you had, no explanation whatsoever. Dynamo is a little bit better, but still, it feels so basic, the support to learn, like to get a feeling how to, I know now you give us samples and templates, but it's not that you understand the system. And then if somebody looks at a Dynamo node, normally you get confused if you look at it without any knowledge. So I would appreciate if there would be more education, as you said, education how to handle this very powerful but very complex tool.
Yeah, I think it's a tricky subject. I know, and I think for the last few years we've been adding the scripts because the ability to take something and edit it is a lot easier than starting with a blank sheet of paper. Yeah. You know, there's no quick fix for that. When we set out on the Dynamo route, it was always going to be, and I remember presenting it in Wolfsburg actually, where we said this is a long journey, you know, because we've got to build a community, we've got to get this going. And I think that the one thing that's helping that is the Dynamo player. It's not the answer to everything. It means that people can pick things up without having to go into Dynamo and start to change things. the Dynamo skills, the computational design is in a way a little bit of a different skill. You kind of need to be able to script a little bit to be able to edit things. And so we found that, you know, we have champions internally that do things and are generating the material, and, you know, we're working hard on building that community. It just, we do need to do more externally with it, I suppose, and more tutorials.
Yeah, because
more appearing, but
I'm following this Dynamo group since a long time, and only a few weeks ago I had a strange experience. Like, somebody was asking something for putting points on a line and stuff, and the simple answer was, yeah, that's basic knowing about lists that you should know. I mean, this is not a community which helps you, because then if I look at the Grasshopper community, where it's much more a community like helping and finding things easily, in Dynamo, unfortunately, it's still very, I don't know, Stone Age kind of.
Yeah, the community is very much architectural based, and that forum is, you know, an automotive thread on the architectural forum even. So yeah, I appreciate what you're saying, and we are doing more. Maybe it hasn't all dropped yet and happened, but we are trying to add more out there as video material. You know, there's programs out there to help get people trained, which is not always straightforward, I realize, because that's you have to engage and pay someone to do that. So we do need to do more on that. I appreciate it.
Sounds good.
Right. So I would go on to the next question. First of all, Rob Worm, thanks for the answer. Next is Patrick Scholl, who asks regarding subdivs, are sweeps planned? More technical question.
I don't think we can explicitly say. I think it's probably, if and when we do it, we contact that person to say, look at it. Yeah, it's a difficult one to say yes or no, I'm afraid.
Right. Anurag asked, in a Class A surfacing, tight construction settings play an important role or not? And if yes, what is optimum construction setting for Class A surfacing?
Oh, that's very interesting. I think if you we get 9 answers now.
I don't think so. I can try if you don't mind. So yes, of course, they play an important role because all you build in Class A, of course, will be immediately measured by somebody else. That's always, I'm telling the guys who are new in Class A or in general in learning. So somebody will check your data, be sure about that. And there are some general things. So 1/1000th of a mil for position. For positional continuity, G0 is kind of a standard most people use. You can discuss if it's makes sense or not. I think the main reason is that CATIA is very often used in big companies as a CAD or construction system, and they have kind of a preset for 1/1000th of a mil, and you have to meet that for data conversion. Yeah, some people in my team they have slightly even more narrow construction settings for G0, but I think 1/1000th of a mil is kind of a standard. I'm curious to hear from you guys any other meanings in a minute. For G1 tangency, I think the preset was 100th, so 0.001. I think that the default is 0.1 and we use 0.01. In ISMSurf, they have minutes and seconds, so don't get confused. We have degrees in Alias, so 0.01 for tangency is quite nice. And in Class A, you always strive for 0. Yeah, the exact 0 is the best. And Class A Stark guys often spend more time on a very good tangency connection with 0 than on the curvature. Yeah, and curvature is usually 0.01 as well. So that's the settings we use, and I know, but I'm really curious if one of my colleagues, Bernd or whoever, has different experiences settings.
No, it's the same. I mean, you are always in the best setting when you use CATIA settings, because at least an engineer gets it. It's true, but on the other hand, you have this gap plan, you have a radii plan, and it comes by time. You will see how you can use the settings, but at the end, an engineer is sitting there and checking it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess like starting with the alias, you can use the presets. That's working on a pretty well level. But I guess it's about alignment again, like talking to the guys who will use the data after you. And it's pretty much depending on the system they are using and their settings. And if you know this, then probably go a bit beyond. So make it a little tighter, then you are on the safe side. Of course, you cannot do this afterwards. You have to do it in advance. So you cannot raise the settings and then expecting that the gaps are filled. So yeah.
Okay. Do we have another question? So I think one question is still able to answer.
All right. So the next question is from Wolfgang Blunk. He greets you and asks, one of the greatest experiences in working with Alias and Vr was having the fully integrated Team Center data bank as PDM. And after Opel, I missed the super efficient way of managing big sets of parts and manage a lot of work. Is there any 100% integrate solution on the horizon? And how can a startup company utilize an integrated PDM tool?
Rob or Thomas, can you? Yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to answer a bit. So I think what we see is with PDM tools, especially with the big automotive OEMs, they're always very custom to the infrastructure and the system. So some have, Opel has certain things, others have different versions. So there's not 100% scalable. It's for everybody around there as well, solution as well. So they're all custom to the OEMs at the end as well. So there's no like a basic one. PDM tool for like smaller companies. So Shotgun is our tool of choice internally to help manage content in a kind of more easier way than the PDM system is at the end, I would say. Yeah, and I want to stop here.
All right.
Niels, Robin, anything to add? Or?
Yeah, I think I'm limited on what I can say, so it's difficult to ask the question. Maybe we take it offline with them at the minute anyway.
Okay. So
I'm curious about Niels with this ABS thing. I'm curious what he has to say about it.
Yeah, hello Wolfgang. He mentioned me, so I of course want to answer the last one. KBS. I think I was still in Autodesk, so it must be 2011-12 when Volkswagen actually officially introduced or allowed Alias to be a Class A tool. Officially means they had a really good plan. We had from Autodesk like a task force for I think half a year or a year. The IT guys of Volkswagen worked with us, the technical staff of Autodesk, and they implemented this very well. So yes, Wolfgang, KBS is able to handle Alias wire files. And this is related to the construction settings. I learned that they have quite cool tools, automatic checker and CATIA. So if you open it or import that file in CATIA, they would have automatically like an annotation. This has been checked with this and this tolerances, yes or no, green or red. So yes, it will be checked. And they took CATIA tolerances as well. And like Thomas said, usually the customer, they have already they have existing PDM systems, and then usually integrate what comes from Autodesk or other companies in. So for the translator at Volkswagen, I remember, I think I can say that it's no secret. You throw a file in, or automatically it generates Alias, CATIA, different versions of the file, very efficient, and the engineer just draws out of the PDM system his CATIA file or Alias file or whatever. So yeah, it's a bit more complex in the world outside, and you're good if you have a good IT department to do these nice tools.
And I suppose for us, as Thomas has said, Shotgun is that kind of automation of those file types, and even image creation. You know, as I said earlier, we could use that process to take the file and put it into whatever need it has to be. So, you know, different file formats, image rendered out automatically, etc. But yeah.
Thank you, Robin. I would probably time-wise ask the last question, which is maybe also a bit more philosophical from Shrikant. He asked, as designers process of finding better solution for a problem, I felt sometimes manufacturability is compromising design. What is the future that industrial design is looking forward for uncompromising functional design?
Okay, is there anybody who wants to answer?
For me, this is exactly what it is about design. I have different limitations and I find the best solution within these limitations. So for me, it's not a restriction, more encouragement. So that's if you talk it philosophical.
Otherwise, it's art, not design, maybe.
Oliver,
what
is your
what are you saying?
Thanks for asking, but Markus already picked it quite well, I guess. That's what it is. That's what professional design is all about. That you find a wonderful solution aesthetically, implementing all the technical necessities, or even innovating them. But you can never do without.
Yeah, we are the old guys when we educated as designers in the early 90s and started without any 3D, and there had been a lot more of limitations, and it changed already extremely in the last 30 years what you can do now. So when I started, freeform surfaces in most of the cases were not be able to produce or just too expensive. So you stayed really in simple shapes.
Yeah, limiting yourself because you do not know how to make it better. But maybe the question is a bit concerning, like in artificial intelligence, solving problems that you can't cope with. But I guess up till now, it's us who brings in the intelligence. Huh?
Yeah. And the magic, I would say, because I have my coming out is I'm an engineer, and I always admire the designers because they bring the magic into the products. Without them, it would look awful. I'm sure it doesn't matter if it's a car or a refrigerator, and that is what I think is cool about the designers. They can do and handle, like Markus said, so many restrictions and even make magic.
In the best case.
I like to
sometimes.
Like last week I was hearing from a designer's point, if you're not an optimist, you should choose a different job because you are the last. You have to always be optimistic and try to make the best out of it, and you have to accept that it will not look like your first sketch. Design is a very liquid process, and it's a journey. It's not a final destination, and everybody bringing in something else can make it even nicer than you have been envisioning it before. So I think we have to accept that there are many restrictions and limitations which we cannot ignore as designers. We have to be more efficient. Aerodynamics are important, and we have to work with them, not against them. Some designers tend to push it away until like the studio engineers come in late, and then they already have everything done, but they will never bring it into production. So we have to find the compromises between design and engineering to actually have that exciting experience that you once sit in a car and you see the work actually physically manifested around you. That's a really great pleasure if you have been involved in one of those projects.
So would you see just to continue a bit on this one, would you see more like simulations early in the design process to help you to be more informed? Like, okay, CFD is one thing, but also heat distribution with a skateboard. Like, would this be more helpful to have information, at least rough information early in design until it's too late in the engineering process?
Depends how easy it is to handle. If I have to learn a new program in order to handle that, no. If it's really like drag and drop, absolutely.
There was already something like, what was it called? Project Falcon, as I remember, which was really easy to use. And
it was Project Falcon.
Yeah, it has to be for a design purpose, not for an engineering purpose, which is completely different and more accuracy.
I would prefer knowing a little bit earlier, but from a designer's point, also Adrian van Hooydonk was always making sure that you are not overwhelmed with complexity and problems, because that will slow down your creativity. You have to step back, have a bigger picture towards that object you want to design, and then you have to bring back the details when the time is right. But if you design totally something which is off package, it will just end up in a closet. So there's no purpose in that. Then you can become an artist and not a designer. And designer always tries to, even if it's aesthetical functions with physical functions blend in together, but there is a reason behind every product, and I think it's quite helpful for me if I have a rough package in the beginning, and then I can tune it, I can optimize it, and I can find solutions to not have like to treat it as an opportunity for change and not a struggle. And if it looks like a struggle, then you cannot wash it out later down the process.
But if I understand Thomas' question in a way that I would like to know, for example, like how forces are running, like improving a design, not doing all this, what we do in this generative design or with for additive manufacturing. No, it's really like getting a better feeling for the materials I will use and what will be the consequences. It's not for exploring. That's why I say if it's easy, I would love to, because then I can explore more. But it should not be that it gives me directions which will lead me away from my creativity, kind of.
No, I do agree. I think it should help you to explore, not to solidify decisions or limit your opportunities at the end to be explorative. Yeah. Because design is all about exploration, not about hitting down. Yeah. Cool.
And maybe I can add, although I'm not part of the forum, but I actually like the teamwork that evolves when working with experts in other fields. So I really like to have some experts, let's say on the aerodynamic side, and you start to have like a development process where you inspire them to try something different, and they can explain you where is exactly that neat spot where you have to be on spot, but where's the freedom to change something in this process, and pushing each other. That's, of course, partially everyone knows it's probably stressful, but I love how creative this is, and often I really like to work with those experts of different fields. That's why I think that's good that there's an expert behind those different departments. But that's my opinion.
Yeah.
Right, Christian, I don't know how much further you want to push it. We have 3 more questions, but we are 5 times over it.
We're already five minutes over it. So I think there's a possibility to answer it offline. Probably, we will put the recording on YouTube and maybe answer the questions there, or we try to do a second event. Would all be good ideas. I think this is a topic it's really good for the ending, because it doesn't has too much to do with the software. It's more about design. So we end up by a topic where that's base of all discussion, and that's the reason for needing the perfect software to have the possibilities to create any shape you can imagine. So thank you all for attending, and thank you guys for this 2 hours of your time. I really appreciate your engagement also in the preparation of the event, and thank you a lot. And I hope see you again in a format that's similar to that, and also as we talked surely offline. So thank you and bye bye. Have a nice afternoon, or see you soon.
Bye bye. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, Christian. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks for the invitation. Bye bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye. Thank you for the invitation. Bye.
Thank you.